Hello and welcome to India Tonight. I'm Shabani Kharat, and the big story that we are tracking now is, of course, the BrahMos and Astra air-to-air missiles developed and made in India, and that caught the world's attention during Operation Sindoor will now be procured by Indonesia. During PM Modi's Indonesia visit, the two countries signed close to 20 MOUs strengthening strategic energy and security relations. The highlight of the visit has been the defense deal. India will supply Astra missiles to Indonesia, and Jakarta will expand its BrahMos missile inventory. This deal will catapult India as a key defense partner in South Asian countries and ensure a huge leap towards India's ambition to become a defense manufacturing hub. On India Tonight, we discuss the key milestone and the road ahead for India when it comes to defense exports and Atmanirbhar defense. But before that, my colleague Avi gets us a roundup of how the defense deal between India and Indonesia will impact defense talks.
India has signed an MOU with Indonesia under which it will be supplying the BrahMos missile and the Astra air-to-air missile to Indonesia. This is being done after Prime Minister Modi landed in Jakarta and signed this MOU with the Indonesian Prime Minister. Indonesia has decided to procure this Astra air-to-air missile after being impressed with its performance in the Operation Sindoor. Also, India will be supplying additional BrahMos batteries to expand Indonesia's existing inventory of the BrahMos missile. The listed beneficiaries of this MOU will be BDL, as it is the most direct beneficiary and it manufactures this missile that are being supplied to Indonesia. As a second order beneficiaries of this MOU will be BEL and Data Patents, which work in the area of defense electronics and radar and communication systems.
So what will it mean for India? We are decoding that. Joining us on India Tonight, we have Major General Dr. G. Dwivedi, Professor Strategic and Management Studies, and we have Major General A.K. Sivaj, former head of Territorial Army. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on India Tonight. Quickly over to you, Major General Sivaj, if you can help us understand how will it help India transition from a defense importer to a defense exporter? What does it mean, for India from that standpoint?
Yeah, Shivani, three issues. No denying the fact, almost about 14 to 15 years back, India was a net importer. Almost 70 to 80% of our weapons we used to import. But the things have changed now. If you see as on today, that majority of weapons are manufactured in India itself, almost about 70%. And not only that, we are making for India itself, the basic slogan of Make in India, Make for World is becoming very true. There are 80 countries where Indian military platforms are being sold. Now, as far as the Indonesia is concerned, it is a maritime neighbor as far as India is concerned. And remember the two major issues which has been as far as the exporting BrahMos missile. BrahMos missile is a best supersonic cruise missile, which is as on today been already bought by Philippines, Vietnam, and also by Indonesia. And now this deal which has been signed is about $630 million. In addition to BrahMos missile, it was Astra air-to-air missile, which is beyond visual range. As far as Astra is concerned, this is the first country which has given order for Astra missile, and this missile Mark 1 can go up till 260 to 300 kilometer. And second, it is not only range is very important, its speed is about 4.5 Mach. So therefore, very important weapon. And this can fit in Indonesia Air Force because they have Su-27 and Su-30. With a minor modification, it can be placed on that. As far as BrahMos missile is concerned, no one can forget Operation Sindoor, the way it has basically successful in dismantling the infrastructure of Pakistan. Also on 9th, 10th May, when it has mainly devastated their 11 frontline airfield. Now, as far as S-400 is concerned, it's a joint production between India and Russia. But what has happened is the majority of countries are now very keen to buy, especially now Southeast Asia country, because they all are having problem with China, especially South China Sea, where China is becoming aggressive and it does not follow the principle of free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific. So BrahMos fit is there as far as the coastal batteries are concerned. Since we were talking that is supersonic cruise missile, is very difficult to detect. It follow the S maneuver. It also goes on a terrain, very close to the ground, and also sea skimming. So it's very difficult to detect and intercept it. It goes in its target and it 100% hits its target, and that is what it has achieved in Operation Sindhu. So overall, this visit has been a milestone and where the defense equipment has become very important. Another thing
Right.
which is the drones and UAE is also been added into this thing, and certain other issues have been discussed between India and Indonesia, especially about the defense
Right.
platforms.
Right, right. Let's quickly go over to Dr. Gigi Dwivedi. Thank you so much for patiently waiting for your turn. Now with this, this visit by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and securing the development rights around, the port of Sabang. In fact, India has acquired that, direct strategic footprint on the western side of the Strait of Malacca. Help us understand how will it help India, in what ways, also the kind of intelligence that probably the Indian Navy will acquire by being present here.
Shivani, firstly, thank you for having me on your show. Well, you asked very pertinent questions. Incidentally, I was in Indonesia in May this year, and I was in Andaman Nicobar about 3 years back. The issue is that when we look at the world globe, today sea lines of communications have become very important, and as Strait of Hormuz is one case in point that if your sea lanes of communications are not secure, then you are very highly vulnerable. Now, as far as Sabang is concerned, well, it sits right on the western edge of state of Malacca. And this is where the Andaman Nicobar and the Sabang, port, they have a lot of complementary development design. You see, when we are developing the Andaman as a major logistic hub, as a major, port, to have the transit facility right from Indian Ocean to Pacific. So also, Indonesia is developing the Sabang port as well. The issue is here three, four important points. Firstly, if you look at strategically, because Strait of Malacca, almost 1 lakh and about 6,000 ships transit through. That was the figure of 2025. So it's a very vital sea lane of communication, and about 5 trillion worth of goods transit through as far as China is concerned through South China Sea. So one is the strategic issue of the sea lines of communication as far as the Malacca Strait is concerned and as far as India is concerned. The second point is that I think Indonesia is trying to balance it out. Like you were discussing just now, the BrahMos and Astra. Incidentally, Indonesia has also negotiated with China $9 billion deal of J-10C fighters. So what is happening is that firstly, China has a deep footprint in the ASEAN countries. Their trade is about $1 trillion, whereas we are only trading $100 billion. And with Indonesia, China's trade is about $100 billion. We are just about $24 billion. So the point I'm trying to make is, I think Indonesia itself is trying to balance out its relations between India and China. And they also, every country looks at it, what is the best for it. So I think BrahMos are suitable for Indonesia, so also Astra. And also, I think it is in the larger interest of Indonesia to develop the Sabang port, so it complements India's Andaman and Nicobar hub, the logistic hub that is there. And my last point is that Indonesia, India had largely good relation, but for 1965, when President Sukarno supported Pakistan and even wanted to send the military support. But for that phase, I think our relations have been on a very good keel. And the president of Indonesia visited last year as the chief guest of Republic Day. So the point I think what Prime Minister Modi is trying to do is to build up the relationship further as a comprehensive partnership and help Indonesia to balance it out between India and China. Shubhani.
partnership also very important. The Strait of Malacca is very important for our neighbor China. In fact, much of the trade, and it's considered as China's economic lifeline as well. Famous phrase for that is the Chinese Malacca dilemma. Major General A.K. Sibach, I would like your reaction on that, on this increased relationship between India and Indonesia.
Absolutely, guys. See, Shivani, what has happened is that after a Strait of Hormuz was blocked by Iran, which was international water, now one has become very that this can be done to any international water which is narrow in shape. And as far as the Malacca Strait is concerned, China is very vulnerable. It's about 60 to 70% oil goes from Malacca Strait, and also about 40% of its other trade. So therefore, the Malacca State is so important for China, is not able to find out alternative. It tried in two, one is China-Pakistan economic corridor and China-Myanmar economic corridor. But both these corridors have not been completed. So as far as the Malacca State is concerned, the dilemma of China will remain. And this is a golden opportunity for India that we develop a Sabang Port jointly between India and Indonesia. Remember that the Great Nicobar project, which we are now making it, is about 150 to 200 kilometers from there. So we can influence that. We have a capacity to choke Malacca State if required. And this China also knows it. And therefore, the point today is that the cooperation and coordination between India and Indonesia will be beneficial for both countries. One is that the supply chains are intact. Second thing is maritime security is there. Third thing is the Chinese are utilize this Malacca State extensively for its trade. This where we can influence it. And fourth is that jointly, if we keep on developing, the Indonesia is a maritime neighbor, and we will gain, and so will be Indonesia. But having said that, one can say that one say there I drustai. What we are doing now in Great Nicobar project could have been done 20 to 30 years back. I, being a head of territorial army, I have gone to all the islands of Great Nicobar as well as Andaman, starting from Ross Smith in the north and to the Great Nicobar into the south. Now, these have a very strategic importance, and therefore, developing Great Nicobar along with the Sabang Port will be a game changer and is a force multiplier for India. And I think it's a step in the right direction that if we jointly develop Sabang Port, will also have tremendous impact as far as the Malacca State is concerned.
Let's discuss the broader strategy also, Mr. Gigi Dwivedi, with you. Now, India is arming, of course, having defense relations with the likes of Indonesia. Vietnam was discussed just now. And, of course, this part of this Prime Minister's visit includes nations like New Zealand, like Australia as well. How is all of this changing the dynamics, especially from a naval and a military standpoint in the Indian Ocean?
Well, firstly, Shivani, India basically is a maritime power, and that's why we had influence right into Southeast Asia, Cambodia, Indonesia, because we are basically a maritime power. And that's exactly what is being now reinvented or revisited. Today, Indo-Pacific is actually a very, very strategically important, piece of real estate, and this is where the major powers are now going to invest. America, of course, was always a Pacific power, and they want to have domination again in Western Pacific, and they are going to contest Chinese rise, especially in Western Pacific, when you talk of South China Sea, East China Sea, Taiwan, first China Islands, that is Japan, and downward up to Philippines. The second point is America has a very consistent basis. They have about 26,000 troops in South Korea. Incidentally, I was defense attaché in China, North Korea, and Mongolia, so I look at this region very, very closely. And the second point is they have a bases in Japan. They have bases in Philippines. So the point is, this is where the contest is going to take place. And India, as a rising power, we cannot actually peel ourselves or wean ourselves away from Indo-Pacific. And this is one of the reasons that we are part of the Quad. But unfortunately, Quad has not actually evolved after President Trump's second term. But there are other players, whether America, puts in its cards into Quad or not. But the other players you rightly mentioned, Australia is a very important country as far as the Indo-Pacific is concerned. New Zealand, Philippines, South Korea, Japan, and Japan as it is part of the Quad. So, Shivani, the point I'm trying to make is that Quad or the Indo-Pacific is very, very important ocean which connects both Pacific and Indian Ocean. Almost 50% of the trade is passing through these routes. So the point at issue is India has well realized that it has to play a major role in three dimensions. First and foremost, the security and the free passage and navigation in Indo-Pacific. Secondly, to protect its own sea lines of communication and trade routes. And thirdly, develop close ties with the nations which are part of the Indo-Pacific and especially in Southeast Asia or ASEAN nation, Australia and New Zealand. My last point is, yes, China has been always worried about the state of Malacca, and they have done a fair bit to have alternate routes. One is Gwadar, of course. Second is the China-Myanmar Economic Corridor. Chaopiu is the port. Then third is Reams Port in Kampuchea. They are also developing Mangla Port in Bangladesh. They have the lease of Hambantota. They have rights in Djibouti. So the point I'm trying to make is the Chinese are also in a big way, and they are taking care of the Malacca syndrome or Malacca dilemma by creating number of alternates that are there. But my end point is, yes, Indo-Pacific is going to be highly contested between the superpowers and also between the regional powers like India, Japan, South Korea, Philippines to push back Chinese expansionist design in this region. Shivani.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your inputs. And as you rightly mentioned, India is effectively countering Chinese string of pearl strategy around Myanmar, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Pakistan. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Major General Gigi Dwivedi and A.K. Sivaj for joining us today on ET Now.
Thank you, Shivani. Thank you.
Well, it is time for us to slip into a very short break on India Tonight. You don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.